Hey guys, today I will be breaking down my Autumn Leaves Fall remix I did for the Mox Jade and Sydney Green remix contest. I am one of the 3 winners, so I wanted to show you guys this project. It's the autumn leaves fall. The whole project looks like this, has a bit of everything, and the first thing I want to show you is the piano from the original stems, and it sounds like this. And the original stem sounds like this. And yeah, I wanted a brighter sound. I have on the effects a camel crusher. I always use this plugin in almost all my sounds. I always use this subtle master preset, and next to it I use Valhalla vintage reverb, the OTT for making it brighter, you know. Parametric EQ, Valhalla shimmer on the drop for making this kind of effect. It's like an ambient made out of it. I use balance to control the volume sometimes, and the Pro EQ for little EQ tweaks. And here on the mixer I did a final EQ. I always make final EQ in here, sometimes, not always, but sometimes it helps to not opening up another plugin. When going to the drop I have this automation to EQ the mid frequencies to make space for drop sounds. You can see it goes down here, so it should be going down here. And yeah, that's for making space for other sounds on the drop. I have this for the start reverb at the beginning of the song. The next thing I want to show you is the bass. I have different basses in this remix. For the intro I have a Harmor bass with a Serum bass and another Serum bass. I will show you how it sounds. The Harmor bass is just like a sub bass. Some EQ, camel crusher, and final EQ. And this is Serum bass. For adding a bit of high and mid bass. And I have also this one, which is doing pretty much the same as the previous one, and together they sound like this. And now I'm gonna show you the drums for the intro. First I have the reverse kick. I have one kick here and a second kick for the lower frequencies. And I have a third kick to have more impact on the next drum. I have this snare tail and the reverse version of it. I have also this trappy snare. Additionally, on the third snare I have this sound For the second part of the intro, in this section, I also have this down sweep. I also have this drum loop. After that I have this reverse clap. And that's everything for the first section drums of the intro. And when entering the verse of the song, I did this. This is where the dubstep drums enter. And this is where I want to show you the dubstep part of the verse after the intro. First, I have the kick. After that, I have this hat, which plays together with the kick and the snare. Also the reverse kick, the intro kick drums. I have this cymbal before the snare, with this sweep, tail snare sweep, and the drum loop. For the dubstep snare, I have this first snare, a second snare, and a third snare, which together it sounds like this. On the verse, I have of course the kick and the snare, a reverse snare, the reverse clap I used before. I added some hi-hats. For the second part of the verse, I added some rides cymbals. After that I have a crash. And next to it I have this different crash. Before the first verse I have these risers. And at the end of the verse I did this again, but with the dubstep drums. Here I added an additional snare to make it different from the rest. And to finish this drum part section of the verse, I have this low impact, one of the cymbal crashes, a clap down sweep, and another cymbal sweep. So the drums all together sounds like this. The next thing I want to show you is the piano chords. For the piano chords I have the original felt piano by Spitfire Audio. The dry sounds like this. I add some OTT, a bit of EQ, and final touches with Pro EQ. The bass for the verse part is a bit different from the intro. It sounds like this. I use this serum preset. I like to separate the mid and sub bass into different channels and after that merge them together. For the mid bass I did only this EQ to remove the sub frequencies. Without the EQ it sounds like this. I did that to create room for my sub bass. After EQ I added fast distortion. For the sub bass I use the 3x oscillator plugin. It's a really basic plugin, it's just for the sub bass. Fast distortion to add more harmonies. Parametric EQ to remove them all but having that harmonic presence. Without the effects it sounds like this. With the effects, and I merged these two sounds in this mixer bus in which I added Camel Crusher Southern Master preset, fast distortion, the mythical plugin Sound Goodizer, parametric EQ just for lowering the high frequencies, and the 3D balance to control the volume. In the first section I also have these atmospheres going on. These are samples I took from the 3G sample pack. Without the effects. And I had to change the pitch of this sample to match the key of my remix because the original sample sounds like this. And I just lowered 6 notes to match the key of my remix. The effects I have going on in this sample: EQ for removing the low frequencies, Camel Crusher of course, Valhalla Shimmer, Valhalla Vintage Birth, OTT for merging all the reverbs together and have a bit of more bright feeling, fast distortion, and balance for volume control. I use another atmosphere sample from the same sample pack. It sounds like this. Without the effects. I also had to change the pitch of the sample because the original sounds like this. And of course it doesn't match the key of my remix. It's on the same mixer bus channel, so it has the same effects. Next thing I will show you is this sound. I talked about this in my previous tutorial about how I make my sparkly grainy sounds, but I'm gonna explain you a bit what did I do here. The dry version sounds like this. I have this first melody, using 3x oscillator, a really basic sound. The second melody sounds like this. Once again, 3x oscillator, basic sound. And the third melody is a piano melody, it sounds like this. And all them together sounds like this. It feels like it makes no sense, but with the effects it's something else. For the effects I have first camel crusher, pretty balance, to control the volume where I want this effect to happen, portal. You can see it's silent here because I just want it to happen at the end. In Portal I did this. I have this shape which make the pitch going up. And with the humanize knob at the 25% you can have some variations. Then I have low filter, Valhalla vintage reverb, Valhalla shimmer, OTT, parametric EQ, and fast distortion. I have this second portal a bit up for the final part of the drop. It goes a bit more higher. Now I will show you a bit of my vocal processing. This is the Mox Jade vocal section.
Memories spread into yellow and red and amber. The air is so crisp with nostalgia and bliss.
At first, I sent this dry signal of the vocals to this mixer box channel where I have the vocal processing, I have parametric EQ,
Memories spread into yellow,
basic EQ, removing the low frequencies, camel crusher,
memories spread into yellow and red, and
delay,
memories spread into yellow and red and amber. The air is so crisp with nostalgia and bliss.
Valhalla vintage verb,
Memories spread into yellow and red and amber.
Valhalla shimmer to fill silent space,
Memories spread into yellow and red and amber. The air is so crisp with
OTT,
memories spread into yellow and red and amber.
a bit of fast distortion.
Memories spread into yellow and red.
I use this Valhalla shimmer for the reverse vocal here.
Memories spread in.
And at the end I have this fat filter to remove the low frequencies made by the fast distortion. Additionally to this vocal I sent the dry signal to another mixer box channel where I have a vocal double.
Memories spread into yellow and red.
I use the vocal double as effect only because I don't want the dry signal, because I'm processing the vocal separately.
Memory spread.
Camel Crusher.
Memory spread into.
OTT.
Memory spread into yellow and red.
EQ.
Memory spread.
Fast distortion a bit.
Memory spread.
And the final EQ.
Memory spread into.
And together with the processed vocal.
Memory spread into yellow and red.
I also have this high pitch vocal. It's very subtle.
Memory spread into yellow and red.
Now we are going to see the build up. I have the piano chords, the lead sounds announcing the drop, the plucky leads, a pluck, the portal effect, bells, atmosphere sample from the original stems, the sauce, these leader things from the original stems, the bass, the plucky melody from the original stems, and of course the piano. Also this atmosphere sample. Everything together sounds like this. For the build-up drums, you have this kick I used previously on the verse, this round kick, these claps, another small clap, sub drop, a downsweep reversed, a short riser, this fills, wind shines downsweep. Finally the build-up sounds like this. I forgot to mention that my sidechain technique is using only balance, and all the mixer bus channels I want them to have sidechain, I route all of them to this mixer bus channel, having this automation usually on kick and snares. For the sidechain shape automation, I like to leave a very small silent at the beginning of the sidechain, and after that a normal sidechain curve. I have been using this sidechain method for years. And finally we are going to the drop.
As the autumn leaves fall. As the autumn.
First thing I want to show you is how I made the vocal chops. For these vocal chops, I right click here and click on open new 3D slicer channel. What it is going to do is to analyze all the transients of the vocal sample and assign them a single note. So if you play this, it sounds like this. And here is where you have to play around with all the slices because it generates many of them. It depends on the length of the sample. So for example, if it plays this part, if I play this, so you can get really interesting results doing this. What I did on my vocal chops is just playing around with the slices. After having a good vocal chop, I removed the ones I didn't like and I kept my favorite ones. And I rendered the vocal chops to have more control. Now let's see the effects. The dry sounds like this. I put camel crusher at first as always. OTT. Delay. 3D reverb. A bit of Valhalla vintage verb. EQ. Final EQ touches. Fast distortion to level up a bit the volume. And a low pass filter for the outro. And now let's see the sauce. Okay, I have the original sauce here because I always render my sauce to not overkill my CPU. The first layer I have is this saw made on Silent One. The second one is Serum saw. This is a simple saw, it's just 2 oscillators with saw waves, a bit of unison voices. The first one has 12 and the second one has 6. Some detune and the oscillator B is an octave higher. There's nothing on the effects. The third saw sounds like this. It's the same as the previous one, the only different thing is that the 2 oscillators have 16 unison voices and a bit of EQ. I have a fourth saw, a bit different, and the fifth saw is on silent. Altogether sound like this. Without the effects, it sounds like this. I have Camel Crusher, OTT, Parametric EQ, Serum effects for the bouncing, fast distortion, and Pro Q. I render the saw to have more control with this atmosphere. This atmosphere goes really well together with the saws. The next sound I want to show you is I have this massive preset, a second massive, I have this sound on silent, and another serum lead. All of them together sounds like this. Now let's see one of my favorite sounds is this plucky lead. Without the effects, it sounds like this. I add Camel Crusher, this serum effect where I have hyperdimension, compressor, EQ and filter. With the hyperdimension sounds like this. Compressor, EQ, and this filter is what makes the plucky sound. I am using this LFO1 with 1/64 LFO rate to make this effect. If I turn this down, it sounds like this. After sound effects, I have Valhalla Vintage Perf, OTT, EQ, serum effect, fast distortion, low filter for the build up, and Pro Q. Next song we're gonna see is this block. First one is made on serum without the effects, sound like this. I have Camel Crusher, delay, OTT, fast distortion, and low filter for the build up. The second plug without the effects is just a square sound on 3x oscillator. In this mixer I have Camel Crusher, of course, EQ, Valhalla Vintage, 3D effector with the lo-fi preset, OTT, fast distortion, low filter for the build up. All this sound together sounds like this. Now let's see the bells. First one is this preset on serum, and the second one is another preset for the higher frequencies. I have this sound from the original stems between the saws. The original sounds like this. On the effects I have Camel Crusher, effector with the lo-fi preset, serum effects, Valhalla Vintage Perf, OTT, fast distortion, parametric EQ, and low filter for the build up. For the bass it sounds like this. On drops I like to have a more crunchy bass. I have the sub bass here, it's just a 3x oscillator but sub bass. And the crunchy bass is this Harmor preset. Together sound really nice. For the drop I also have this piano. Together with the chords. And the main piano. Another thing I have are these bass fills going in between the saws. I have this massive preset, this serum, and another serum preset. I have been using this kind of bass fills for years. I forgot to mention that I have this plucky bass support for the main bass. It's just for accentuate the bouncing here in this part. The drum section is very similar to the verse drum section, just that I added a few more samples, like this. You know, to make the sound more interesting. I also took this from the original stems for the snares. And at the end of the drop I add this pluck, following the same melody as the original stems. Layering it with my pluck. And finally the drop sounds like this.
As the autumn leaves fall, as the autumn leaves fall, as the autumn leaves fall, as the autumn leaves
The Sydney Green vocals follow a similar process as I did with the Mox Jade vocals. The vocal processing
the seasons will change, but alas,
and the doubler
the seasons will change, but
together.
the seasons will change, but alas stays the same.
And I also added a down pitch vocal.
The seasons will change, but our love stays the same.
The seasons will change, but alas stays the same.
In In this section before the second build-up, I added strings. Second drop is pretty similar as the first drop. The only different thing is that I add an additional plug and made the plucky lead to follow this arpeggio part. I also have this additional plug. One of the things I love about the original song is the vocal duo Mox Jade and Sydney Green did on the second part of the song, and I kept it in my remix for the second drop. The duo vocal sounds like this.
As the autumn leaves fall, as we become gold in the September cold, I'll warm you. Together we'll spin in the whimsical winds.
And now with my second drop.
As the autumn leaves fall, as we become gold in the September cold, I'll warm you. Together we'll spin in the whimsical winds. As we descend heart to heart, hand in hand, this moment, standing so tall, I'll savor it all. As the autumn leaves fall.
And for the last part of the remix, I have this sweet outro with the vocal chops of the first drop.
As the autumn leaves fall.
And that's all, my friends. I hope this breakdown helps you to know a bit more of the structure of a melodic dubstep or chillstep song. Maybe someday in the future I can show you my mastering process, but for now just wanted to show you this breakdown. Enjoy my remix. You can listen to it now everywhere on every music streaming platform. Thank you so much Mox Jade for hosting this remix contest. It was a pleasure to remix such a wonderful remix, and give me a like if you enjoyed this video.